Welcome back to the Patreon board! Because of how lengthy some of these requests are, we're going to start with the one from Steve Kid. It's for a certain Dreamworks movie, Monsters vs. Aliens. Originally developed as a film adaptation to horror comic Rex Havoc in 2002, directors Conrad Vernon and Rob Letterman ended up creating their own storyline that essentially satirizes the horror genre, something that many who worked on this film really loved. And I mean, I totally get it. Horror movie monsters were especially huge during the 50s through the 70s, so why not add a bit of flair to them and do something a bit different? Now, this was the first movie to use stereoscopic 3D technology, which later Dreamworks films would also use. And you can tell that this movie was made during a time when 3D was being heavily promoted in films and in video games. Regardless of how you feel about them, or how you felt watching it this way in theaters, this review will obviously be grounded to how it should be played and nothing else. Otherwise, let's watch the big battle between Monsters vs. Aliens with Monsters vs. Aliens. After seeing the Dreamworks logo kid get abducted by aliens, we see a planet in deep space explode, while releasing a strange green rock chunk. It's heading towards Earth, and of course, as we transition to a US outpost, the movie gives a clear demonstration of the 3D effects. Ow, 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 ow. He picks up the signal, and despite his colleague freaking out, they put in a report that it's landing in Modesto, California, and there's something monstrous invading this house. And it's going for this woman. That's funny. So this is Susan Murphy, voiced by Reese Witherspoon. She's waking up early because her fiancé Derek, voiced by Paul Rudd, is announcing their marriage while doing his job as a weather reporter.
I love you, baby.
I love you too.
Aww.
And yeah, you can tell that they haven't quite gotten past the uncanny looking human characters in this movie. It's nicer looking than in the B movie, but this was done at the same time as Kung Fu Panda. How to Train Your Dragon was only a year away, and that was way better too. Susan is obviously looking forward to the wedding, and the upcoming honeymoon in Paris. Her future mother-in-law seems nice too.
One thumb is shorter than the other. It runs in the family.
Derek doesn't have that.
It skips a generation. Your kids are gonna have it.
Let's pretend that this movie isn't trying to shame people with deformities. As she goes to talk to Derek, he calls off the Paris honeymoon because of last-minute changes. He took a job as an anchorman in Fresno, and Susan acts like that's a good thing.
That's amazing. It's amazing. Fresno's like a top 50 market, isn't it?
Susan, we know you're disappointed. You don't have to hide it. I mean, you can kind of see how she feels after he leaves, but more importantly, it's time for that meteorite to crash down and move the plot forward. No, run towards where it came from. You'll just get caught up in... Oh, now see, you're dead. The movie's over now. Or not, because when that green stuff disappears, Susan's mother comes out and sees her coming up from the hill and doesn't even question that large sound. Susan is dazed, but otherwise not dead. And here comes the boys in black. The wedding starts, and right as Derek unveils her, he sees her eyes glowing. Now she's radioactive and growing. That can't be good.
Have some champagne while we're figuring this out.
Okay, you get one for that. Good thing most of her clothes grow too, though the government seems to come in to subdue her. Derek tries getting to her, but it doesn't matter because they have a large sedative.
Derek.
Well, that was exciting. When's the reception? Of course, Susan wakes up thinking she was in a dream. But nope. Clearly she's at the SCP Foundation now and is still giant-sized. It's just that the furniture and clothes are as large as she is. But there was also normal-sized furniture because this is a shared chamber with the other inhabitants of this place.
Hello? Please, madam, stop doing that! Ow!
Honestly, not surprising she did that. So yeah, here come the monsters of this movie. First we have Dr. Herbert Cockroach, voiced by Hugh Laurie, who merged with a cockroach and gained its abilities. He's a reference to movies like The Fly and The Curse of Frankenstein. Then there's Bob, voiced by Seth Rogen. I think it's pretty obvious who he's a reference to.
I forgot how to breathe. Don't know how to breathe. Help me, Dr. Cockroach, help! Help!
Suck in, Bob.
Oh, thanks, Doc.
I'm surprised he didn't voice Link, who's voiced by Will Arnett, since he's meant to be the missing link, meaning he's kind of a gorilla, like Donkey Kong. But yeah, I guess you could say he's like the creature from the Black Lagoon or something, even though the filmmaker said he isn't meant to reference anything. Finally, we have this massive bug called Insectosaurus. According to the filmmakers, he's a Mothra reference. Gee, I wonder why. He is kinda cute though.
Okay, buddy, don't worry about it. Who's a handsome bug, huh? You like it when I rub your tummy?
Susan is naturally freaking out over all this, so somebody has to come and chat with her. And that someone is...
Madam, I assure you I am not a sideboard. The name is General W.R. Monger. I'm in charge of this facility.
just one letter short of being called Warmonger. Ha. He's voiced by Kiefer Sutherland, and is in charge of this secret government facility meant to contain monsters. He shows her around, and boy, our tax dollars are funding stuff we don't know about. I do find it funny that Dr. Cockroach was trying to build a nuclear weapon out of Legos.
You wouldn't happen to have any uranium on you? Just need a smidge.
Rescind Dr. Cockroach's toy box privileges immediately.
In any case, Susan, who is nicknamed Ginormica because of her size, like Attack of the 50-Foot Woman large, will not have contact with any friends or family because she'll be living here forever.
Don't think of this as a prison. Think of it as a hotel you never leave because it's locked from the outside.
Oh, so Hotel California. Poor Susan. Sure sucks to be here. Anyway, we see a massive ship that contains our villain, Galaxar, voiced by Rainn Wilson. He's after the substance inside the meteorite, Quantonium, a lot of which is inside Susan now. Galaxar sends a robot probe to go find it, and it runs into the cliched lonely teen couple in a car. Except this time it's the girl who hits on her reluctant partner. They then see the thing crash, and of course she insists on checking it out.
No! No! My ankle! I think it's broken. Katie?
This is the worst date ever.
But of course they both find what crashed and scream together. The military arrives along with US President Hathaway, voiced by Stephen Colbert. And my god is his chin huge! I'm not sure who he's a reference to, if at all, because why else would they make him like this? And his method of communicating with the massive UFO is to use an electronic piano. At first it seems like it wants to make peace, but it's just a ruse. This thing's on the attack.
Commander, do something violent.
Well, at least he tried to make peace before resorting to violence. Heh, E.T. go home. This sort of thing works only in this movie. But yeah, normal weapons do jack squat. So an emergency meeting is held and nobody comes off well here.
We need our top scientific minds on this. Get India on the phone.
Can we transport the United States to a safer planet?
I say we give this alien a green card and make him proud to be an American.
And of course, there's a giant-ass button that sets off the nukes. And the other summons a latte.
What idiot designed this thing?
You did, sir. Fair enough.
Wilson, fire somebody.
Mr. President, you almost started a nuclear war. What are you gonna do now?
I'm going to Escalator Land!
But then Munger shows up, recommending that he send
monsters.
Because he's been collecting them for years. He thinks they can fight the UFO. Hathaway accepts.
General, I propose we go forward with your monsters versus aliens idea.
Title drop. Meanwhile, the monsters are just trying not to get bored, and the doctor has been experimenting to see if he can get Susan back to her normal size. She obviously misses her old life and Derek, but sadly the experiment fails. Then Monger shows up to tell all the monsters to get out and fight the aliens. The monsters are promised freedom if they succeed, leading them to think about their future plans.
Then I'll go back to Modesto and be with Derek.
Yeah, that's still Susan, Bob.
I think I at least deserve a chance to be with Derek.
Yeah, I really like Bob. Seth Rogen can be really funny sometimes. So the monsters are brought to the giant robot. Susan panics and goes into hiding, and while the other monsters do their best, they're clearly too small to make a difference. The robot then locks onto Susan and finds her within San Francisco, leading to a chase where Susan uses cars as improvised skates. Link tries catching up by going through the sewer. And of course, the doctor has a plan. He wants to get Link up to the CPU and...
Catch me!
Never mind. Susan is cornered at the Golden Gate Bridge where she helps civilians evacuate. She is close to getting grinded to death, but Insectosaurus shows up in time. Everyone gathers and cheers on Susan because she looks really strong versus the robot.
You're doing great!
I'm doing everything!
Not for long. The doctor gets inside the robot while Bob helps those in cars evacuate. The doctor then messes with said robot, giving Susan the opening to drag it off the bridge. It trips and falls, and also...
Decapitation!
They won, but Galaxar is very angry.
That lower life form thinks she can steal my quantonium?
Dude, she doesn't even know who you are. Anyway, Susan's happy that she did something cool, while Link is disappointed that he didn't get to do anything at all. All the monsters bond over this experience, but Susan still wants to return to her normal life. So they all pop over to her neighborhood to introduce themselves to her family.
Follow my lead.
I love how even the doctor goes into wreck stuff mode like the other monsters. So Susan finally sees her parents and tries to introduce her new friends to them. Shock of all shock, the whole thing is very awkward.
That's my mother! You're suffocating her!
Honey, are you alright?
I taste ham.
But Derek isn't here, so Susan sets off to find him while leaving the monsters with her parents. So how are they all gonna pass time?
Did I come on too strong? I'm sorry. I'm a little rusty.
Anyone care for an atomic gin fizz? It's got quite a...
You guys are a riot. Susan finds Derek just finishing up his day at work. She can't handle him quite right, being a giant and all. But the red flags come when he says this.
So you expect me to put all that on hold while you try to undo this thing that happened to you? That I had absolutely nothing to do with? But I'm not looking to get married and spend the rest of my life in someone else's shadow. And you're casting a pretty big shadow.
Even before Susan became giant size, Derek consistently made choices that benefited him at her expense. So it's no surprise that this jerk would lash out like that. So Susan leaves, upset over what happened, and her monster friends try to cheer her up.
Great party. One of the best I've been to since I got out of prison.
I must have been at a different party, because that's not how I interpreted it at all.
At least the monsters help Susan admit that Derek's a jerk and that she doesn't need his approval. Now she has new friends who can support her and make sure she never sells herself short again. And she gets abducted by Galaxar's ship.
Insecto, look out!
Insectosaurus! No!
It's gonna be all right. Look at me. Don't you close those eyes. Don't you dare close those eyes. You can't.
Susan wakes up in new clothes and is now in front of a bunch of other robots before she gets captured. Why wasn't she captured already? Galaxar introduces himself and exposition dumps about what he wants to do with the Quantonium. There's a chase scene where Susan breaks out of her force field and goes after the big bad, but then she's trapped in the extraction machine and is turned back to her normal size. Galaxar then reveals his master plan to rebuild his civilization on her planet.
There were innocent people on my home planet before it was destroyed.
Look, I'm sorry your planet was destroyed.
Oh, don't be. I'm the one who destroyed it.
Yeah, so that planet at the start was his own, and he purposely blew it up because...
I found out my parents were... No child should ever have to endure that. So I went on the road with a giant...
Heh, but really, he needs none. He's a mad scientist, and that's enough. His idea of rebuilding his civilization also means making clones of himself. Never mind how they might argue with one another over who's superior, but otherwise he's going to invade Earth soon.
Just to recap, I come in peace, I mean you no harm, and you all will die. Galaxar out.
Back with the monsters, Insecto is covered in silk after dying, and the survivors want revenge. They get in touch with Monger, who hooks them up with jetpacks so they can fly into the ship.
I've been your warden for close to 50 years. That's no longer the case. For what it's worth.
Monger's weird. He's clearly meant to parody the typical warmonger generals in the movies, yet he does care for the monster's safety. Hell, he even distracts the UFO so that the monsters can board it, even taking a hit and, well, they survive. But enough of that. Once they're inside, they see a machine that gives the clones their clothes, so they decide to use it to disguise themselves. It's a bad idea, but the clones are so stupid they don't notice a thing. Because when they find Susan, one of the clones gives her to them and gives them a gun.
Hey guys, look. Okay.
All the monsters are happy to see Susan, even if she's no longer giant-sized.
No matter what your size, you'll always be nothing but a filthy carbon-based life form.
Hail Galaxar.
Hail Galaxar.
Anyway, the plan is to blow up the ship before the invasion happens. A clone tells our heroes where the power core is, but when he gets shot, the other aliens notice. Can't put it off any longer. Time for some Monsters vs. Aliens Climax. With some quick thinking, they end up at the power core, which is watched over by the ship's main computer. It's protected by a color-coded system in the form of a DDR dance pad.
One thing you don't know about me, my dear. My PhD is in dance.
Look, this is one of the few pop culture references in this movie, so I'll let this slide. The ship is set to self-destruct, and for whatever reason, the invasion is off.
Oh, baseballs.
Oh, shit. There goes the planet.
Lockdown begins, and only Susan is able to escape it. She doesn't want to leave the other monsters, so she decides to catch Galaxar and have him open the doors. It's pretty cool how she flies on hover devices, dodges the giant death ball, then kicks one of her flotation devices at Galaxar's control room so she can get to him. Even with normal size, she can still put up a fight. But all the Quantonium has been diverted to his escape pod, and he actually has no way to open the doors for the monsters. So there's only one option left for Susan.
And the name is Ginormica.
Dead. No, of course not. Just as everything falls apart, Susan returns giant size to save her friends. But they're in a free fall and there's no one to catch them.
He wouldn't be here as if he was dead.
Or late.
And now for the kaboom.
Nothing happened. Maybe my count...
With the Earth saved, everyone starts loving our heroes. Derek shows up, seemingly with a change of heart.
I forgive you.
Or not. He's only there to get an exclusive interview with Susan, and this is how she responds.
Bob, could you,
Derek, you are a selfish jerk, and guess what? I've met someone else. I'm happy now, Derek, without you. It's over.
Oh, Bob, you're the best. Monger tells our heroes of some radioactive snail heading towards Paris, so the adventure isn't over for them yet. This ends the movie proper, but a mid-credits scene has Hathaway inducting Monger into the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
What a great way, sir, to celebrate my 90th birthday.
You're that old? Anyway, coffee time. Now whatever you do, don't hit the big red button.
Time to wave the white flag and head for the bunker, boys. Let's check on the situation in 500 years. Who wants to freeze my head?
What an ending. Anyway, this movie's a lot of fun. While the message of seeing monsters as people isn't all that groundbreaking, I got the chance to see monsters that harken back to older properties of the horror genre, and I thought the jokes were pretty good this time around, which wasn't a strong suit for Dreamworks movies of this time period. I definitely love the monster cast in this, and I enjoy their different quirks as they help Susan adjust to her being one of them. And Susan's a fun character who manages to grow into a better and more independent person. I just wish the quality of the CGI was less creepy and less gross-like. Still, the film did well enough that it made over double its budget back. It had some shorts and a TV series, but any plans for a proper movie sequel were canceled given that they wouldn't sell internationally, like some of their other comedy films. Probably for the best. This one felt like a one-off type thing, and better not to spoil a good thing with anything else. They had their fun with satirizing movie monsters, so let's move on to better things. And next time, we'll be moving on to a second season of a show I covered before. I'll see you then.